Hello, hello, friends. It's a beautiful day on the river. We're in Washington. I'm super excited because I'm going to try something new today. I've been talking about doing these book tellings, recounting these amazing books that I read, and today is the first one. So I'm excited. This book, The Pearl, is written by John Steinbeck, one of my favorite authors. I thought this would be a good book to start off with, not only because it's a short book, but also because there is a lot to it and it's really interesting. To take it from the top, this story involves murder, mayhem, a family, a pearl, wealth. John Steinbeck just does a great job of kind of keeping you at the edge of your seat. If you guys want to read the book before I do the spoiler recounting of the tale. So it's basically this family in La Paz, Mexico. He's a diver for pearls and he finds a big one. That's all I'm going to say. That's not giving it away, because they kind of say that right in the beginning of the book, and then what happens from there is the rest of the story, right? Taking it from the top on a beautiful Sunday on the river. I mean, what better place to tell an amazing story? Well, I thought actually a better place would be the bay. But you know what? Nothing's perfect in life. So here we go. The Pearl by John Steinbeck. I just finished this book yesterday, I believe. It's a pretty short book. It tells the tale of Kino, the Mexican fisherman who lives on the bay somewhere by La Paz, Mexico, a long, long time ago. He lives there in a little village with his wife, Juana. And then they have a little son named Coyotito. He's a little baby. Now, Kino and his wife and all the villagers, they live on the side of this beautiful bay, like right next to this beautiful bay. The town is made up of fishermen. They're all pearl fishermen. Their fathers were pearl fishermen. The grandfathers were pearl fishermen. And, oh, looks like there's a dog up here. Looks like I'm not the only one on the river today. So what happens is Kino and his wife, everybody's pretty poor. You know, they're doing the rice and beans thing. They're living cheaply. They talked about his rattered and tattered clothing. But they had enough to eat and they had a roof over their head, and they were, you know, they were poor, but they were happy. And Kino is out on his canoe one day, and what he does is he has this big rock. So it's like a rock, and I believe it's like tied to a line or to a long string or something. And he'll jump in the water after he holds his breath, and the rock will take him all the way to the bottom. I believe I read that he could hold his breath for about 1 to 2 minutes. So he's under the water, he's holding his breath. It didn't say anything about goggles, so I'm just guessing that, you know, he doesn't have any goggles on. He's just going by his eyesight, which, you know, I don't know how well you can see under the water with your eyesight, but maybe it was good. So he's looking for pearls, You know, he goes along, he finds little clusters of oysters, and then he'll keep moving, and then he'll go to the next cluster of oyster. And then he said that he saw this big oyster, like a little bit off a ways, and something was glimmering out of the open shell. Now again, I'm wondering, how much glimmer can you actually see with no goggles under the water? But we're just gonna go with it. So he gets this big oyster. He's all excited about it. He sees this little glimmer inside. He takes it up to the top, and it was the biggest pearl that he'd ever found. So imagine this poor, poor fishing town, and you're poor all your life. You got a thatched roof, you got a thatched house, you got a dirt floor, and then all of a sudden you bring up this amazing pearl. He said it was perfect in all of its glory, and it was as big as a seagull's egg. The dog is barking at us. We might have to wait a second. A little puppy. So however big a seagull's egg is, that's about how big they said the pearl was. And he brings it back, and I feel like I wouldn't have told anybody, you know, Like, hey, if you got something really valuable, don't tell anybody about it, because that just makes you a target. But this was a long, long time ago, and it was a small fishing village, so I don't really know how they operate. But apparently Kino comes back and, tells everybody of the pearl of the world that he found. And he was showing the neighbors, he was showing everybody. Everybody's like, oh my God, he found the pearl of the world. Wow, it's gonna change his life. It's gonna change everything. How wonderful. Oh, that's right. I did miss a little part of the story. That's right. So as it's not a perfect system, I remember we have to back up a day or two before he finds the pearl. And we're in the hut. It's evening time, and Juana and Kino are in the hut with their baby. Now their baby Coyotito, which means little coyote, just in case you're wondering, is laying down. And Kino looks over and he sees this black scorpion like crawling down the line that's fastened to like where the baby is, like the bassinet or something. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. So, and then, John Steinbeck, he just like keeps you in suspense by talking about how the scorpion is just slowly going down this string to the bassinet, and the baby, the baby is the baby just hanging out. And Kino, the dad, he like sees it from across the way. And if you don't know, black scorpions, depending on where you are, can be deadly in general for elderly people, sickly people, and young babies. So generally, if you're a healthy adult, it's not really going to do that much except really hurt for a while, but it could kill the baby. So the scorpion's coming down, and it says, Kino jumped across the floor, and he grabs the scorpion, but not before the scorpion stung the baby in the neck. And so it says that Kino made a paste out of the scorpion. He was so mad. But now Coyotito is bitten, or stung, as it were, by the scorpion. So again, this is before they found the pearl. It's not really too much of a flub up here. But Juana's freaking out. The wife is freaking out. The baby's gonna die. Oh my God. All these tales of lore, and probably tales that they've heard from the neighbors about, people actually dying. Well, Kino takes the crappy little pearls that he has, which isn't very much, but it's all that he has. And everybody's telling him, oh, the doctor, he doesn't pay attention to us poor people. He's not gonna help you. Don't even bother going to the doctor. And Juana's like, oh, no. We are taking my son to the doctor. We are going. So Juana gets Coyotito, Kino, they all go to where the doctor is. And the doctor, they say he's just become this bureaucratic, he helps all the richest of the rich. And he sees Kino coming from down the road. And so he's thinking to himself, oh, this poor fisherman, I'm not gonna help him. What's in it for me kind of thing. And so, Kino and Juana knock on the door, and the servant comes. And, they say what's up. The baby got stung by the scorpion. And the servant says, what kind of money do you have to pay with? What did you bring with you? So Kino breaks out these crappy little pearls that he has and, gives them to the servant. The servant leaves and comes back a few minutes later. And he says, I'm sorry, the doctor's not in. And he passes them the pearls. And of course, Kino knew that the doctor was in there. Why are you gonna ask, what do we have, if the doctor's not there? But, he's enraged. He's going with it. The baby's sick. They're just trying their best because by now, the baby's crying. The venom's getting in. Juana was she was sucking on the baby's neck or whatever to try to get the poison out as much as she could. And then they get home, they're feeling super defeated. The neighbors are feeling super bad, but they can't do anything. They're poor too. And Juana goes down, they're people of the sea. And Juana goes down and she gets, I think it was some kelp or some algae from the sea. And she puts it, kind of makes this paste poultice type thing. And she puts it, on the baby's neck where he got bit by the scorpion. And I personally think that could have been the best thing to do. And that's what it says in the book. It's that was probably the best thing that she could have done. Seawater is a natural antibacterial, anti-inflammatory with all the salt. And so, sure enough, the baby starts to get better. Okay, fast forward a day or two. Now Kino's found the pearl, and guess who comes strolling up the road? You got it, the doctor. The news had spread. The doctor found out that, he's got this pearl and now he can probably pay him. But by now, Coyotito's already better. He's not crying anymore. The wound has started to, come down and stop being less inflamed. And nonetheless, he shows up. And Kino's like, hey, doctor, what's up? He's like, oh, I'm so sorry I was out yesterday. And Kino's like kind of enraged, they said in his head, because you freaking know, man, you know if somebody's playing you. Here, let's take this quick left. This looks cool. So, nonetheless, the doctor, being the ever miser, slithery snake that he is, he tells Kino and Juana, which are uneducated, small town people, oh, just because the wound is better now doesn't mean the Coyotito will be better. It has been known that the baby seems to be getting better, and then poof, all of a sudden he dies. And so he's roping Juana and Kino in, and they're buying it. It's their only son. They don't want anything to happen to him. They're not sure that he's better. The doctor has way more experience in cheating people, this doctor in particular. So, lo and behold, the doctor talks him into having him take like this pill or this, syringe full of like medicine or whatever it was. So the doctor leaves, he comes back, he gets the magic potion, and he like injects it into like the baby's mouth or something and gives him some water so he can't spit it out. Well, like 20 minutes later, the baby starts getting sick again. He starts getting sick again, and he's vomiting, and he's not doing well. And the doctor's like, see, I told you. If it weren't for me coming, the baby would have probably died right then and there. But because I gave him my potion, no, he's going to be just fine. And you can just totally see it, but, when you're in the moment, anyways, so it just leads the reader to believe, oh, he's such a miser. Okay. So then, and everybody's waiting for him to sell the pearl now. And now paranoia is starting to set in with Kino. Paranoia is starting to set in. He's got this big ass pearl the size of a seagull egg, and all the neighbors describe it like this, like they're all using their thumb and their forefinger. Oh my God, it's like this. The pearl is like this. Nobody has ever seen a pearl that big. It was also like, it kind of told of, back in the day, and probably in some other places, they talk of, the black magic or the family song or the song of evil. So the night that Kino has the pearl, the song of evil starts to play in his mind. I wonder if I could go over this thing. Maybe. Let's get some run and start. Oh, I don't know if we can make it. Yeah, we're not going to make it. That sucks. So it says that the song of evil was in his head the night of the pearl, and then, for a time afterwards, because now he's afraid that he's got this pearl that everybody wants, that everybody wishes that they had found, and now everybody knows about it. So the song of evil was there, and even Juana, she could feel it, and the baby, and she's like, you know what, Kino, that thing is evil. Let's get rid of it. And Kino's like, oh, no. I'm a man. I found this pearl. I'm changing our lives. I'm making it better. My son's going to school. He's becoming educated. I'm going to buy myself a rifle. He has all these grand plans, right? So I don't think anything happened on that first night, but he was super worried that it was going to. And he was super paranoid, he like buried the pearl somewhere in his house and like slept over it. And then the next day, everybody knew that he was going to go to the center and sell his pearl. So I think this is kind of weird, but again, it's all cultural. It's all, it seemed like it was normal in the book. But since everybody knows that he has this pearl, they're really excited for him, and like some people are jealous of him, and other people are like, well, if I'd have found it, this is what I would buy. And they're all kind of in this dream with him. So he's gonna go sell his pearl to the pearl buyers in town. Now it says that the pearl buyers back in the day, you know, OG, whenever that was, they were separate and they would not, you know, get together and like price fix the pearls. But now the buyers have discovered that, you know, obviously it's cheaper for everybody if we're all kind of in cahoots together. They kind of are in it to like get the lowest price for the pearl. Like who can screw the person over the most and pay the lowest for the pearl and then get the boss like the biggest profit, right? Like that's their whole mission in life, is to get the lowest cost for things and screw people over, according to the book. So Kino goes in, all the neighbors are following him, so you have this big group of people. The pearl buyers are getting ready. They know what's happening. They know he's on his way. They've all kind of decided, you know, this is the most that we can pay, X amount. He never says what that amount is. And, you know, everybody kind of holds their breath, and Kino goes into the first place, and the guy, he's like, you know, super sophisticated. You know, it just makes him seem like, this buyer's a player, you know? And it talked about this coin that he had. You know those poker players when they kind of, you know, put this chip in between their fingers and it goes up and slides away and it goes up and slides away? Well, that's what he was doing with a coin, I guess, but it was under the table, so you can't really see it. So Kino takes the pearl out of his front breast pocket, has it in a little bit of deer skin, lays it out on the little black velvet tray, and he immediately looks to the buyer for some kind of a facial expression. But the buyer, he's like a poker player, you know? He can't let his emotions show. However, it says underneath the table where his coin was going back and forth along the knuckles, it dropped. So that just goes to show you right there, he knew that pearl was something. Oh, I got a spider on my foot. Get off of me, spider. So we got the buyer, we got Kino, we got the pearl, Juana's there, Coyotito's there, the whole freaking town is there, and they're waiting to see what this buyer's gonna say. Now, typical bartering style is to say, you know, this is a piece of crap, right? What you're trying to sell me is a piece of crap. And that's what he did. That's what the pearl buyer did. He picks it up, he kind of looks at it haphazardly and tosses it back into the thing, and he says, "I'm sorry, my son. Have you ever heard of fool's gold?" And Kino had not heard of fool's gold. He tells him what it is. He's like, this is basically like fool's gold, but as a pearl. He's like, no one's gonna want this pearl. Who's gonna want this pearl? I mean, maybe I could sell it to a museum as like a curiosity, maybe. But like, you know, I'm sorry, what you have here is just basically nothing. He's like, I can give you 1,000 pesos for it, which in today's dollars would be, Mexican pesos to dollars, it would be like $50, which granted, back in the day, back in Kino's time, was like more money than he'd ever seen, but Kino knew that this was the pearl of the world. And he tells him, he says, oh, no, you know, you're trying to screw me. I know this pearl is worth way more. You guys have been screwing our fathers and our grandfathers for the longest time, and I'm sick and tired. I'm not going to take it anymore, basically. So I'm like, way to go, Kino. Take no prisoners, you know, sell the pearl. He's like, I could go to the city. Just like our ancestors used to do, and I could find the best price in the city. And I'm like, yeah, Kino, you tell him. Well, the buyer, he says, okay, don't believe me. I'm gonna bring in some other buyers and listen to them and see what they have to think. So he brings in the other buyers. Of course, they'd all planned on this before, right? So the other buyers come in and they sell him a bunch of BS as well. One of them says, oh, it's pasty, it's chalky. Oh, this is gonna disintegrate in a couple days or in a couple weeks. And then the next one says, oh yes, this is fool's gold. I won't pay you anything for it. Because it's worthless. And of course, they're all in cahoots together. Now, Kino's getting madder and madder. He's just about to leave, and the first buyer senses it. Because even though you want to get him to give you the worst price possible, Kino, you still want that pearl, right? Because you know it's valuable, especially if that's your business. So he tells he tells Kino, he senses he's going to lose him. He senses that the buyers have taken it too far. And he goes, okay. You know, I shouldn't do this. But I will go up to 1,500 pesos. 1,500 pesos, and that's the most I can do. Like, maybe I could make a couple hundred pesos profit on it. So now we're up to like $75 US. Again, back in the day, more money than he'd ever seen. Like, that would be really hard to turn down if you're a fisherman wearing raggedy clothes. You got your wife there, you got your little baby who's recovering. But Kino knows that is not a good deal. So he says, no, to hell with you. To hell with you, buyers. I'm taking my pearl somewhere else. And he grabs the pearl, and, you know, some of the townspeople are saying, you know, I can't believe that he left that on the table, because everybody's, you know, you know, they're all talking within each other, you know, amongst each other. What did they say? What did he say? What did he offer? What did he not offer? And so everybody's up to date now. And of course, everybody has their opinion. Opinions are like as we know. And, you know, some of them are saying he should have taken the money. Others are saying, good for him. You know, he should try to get a better deal. They've been screwing us for years. You know, good for him. We're finally going to see someone who gets, you know, value for something. Which, side note, my time as a fisherman, you know, I learned quite a lot and saw quite a lot, experienced quite a lot about how they buy crab. I heard about how they buy salmon and halibut. And it just seems like he who has the gold makes the rules is what comes to mind, you know, especially with the salmon. You know, the salmon are just coming through and they're there for like this short period of time. And the canneries know that. And the fishermen know that. So I feel like the fishermen are always getting screwed over. But then again, you know, everybody's got their opinion on that. So I'll just leave it to that. But it just seems like, yeah, man. Fishermen just get screwed over sometimes, and it sucks. And other times, they make good money. So, you know, it's never all of one or all of another, but it was interesting to see that in this pearl book. The pearl fishermen talk about how they've been getting screwed over for, you know, generations and generations. I'm like, gee, that sounds familiar. So off Kino goes with the pearl. Juana's telling him again, this thing is evil. We got to get rid of it. Kino's like, no, we're going to the city. So they get back home. He's talking to his brother, or that's right, his brother's walking with him away from the buyers. His older brother's giving him the older brother 2 cents talk. This is what I think, you know, but you got to do what you got to do. He says, I think I'm going to go to the city. The brother says, the way is long and treacherous. He says, I don't care. I'm going to go. I'm going to get the best price for my pearl. This is the pearl of the world. It's the best chance I have, basically, for me and my family that I'll ever have for the rest of my life, right? And so you're like super feeling for Kino. You're like, way to go, Kino. You know, the path is not beaten, but you can do it. Like, I'm on Kino's side here, right? So that night, the song of evil comes back around, right? Now, especially the buyers know now that he has this very valuable pearl. The rest of the town knows, the brother knows, everybody knows. So Kino's all freaking out, you know, paranoid. Juana's kind of freaking out. The baby's chilling. And now he's put the pearl under a rock by the fireplace. Like, there's, you know, the dugout fire in the dirt floor. So he's put it like underneath one of the rocks by the fire. And he hears something outside. He takes his little knife. He goes outside. Juana's fearful. You know, she's afraid something's going to happen to him. And then she hears this ruckus and then a cry. And Juana waits a minute. And then she goes outside. And Kino is laying down, hurt on the floor or something like that. Like somebody had beat the crap out of him. And they looked for the pearl in his clothes and they couldn't find it. Juana drags him inside. And the whole town is kind of abuzz with this. You know, there's probably like $1 million right in the hut next to us, and we can't go to sleep, and we can't think about it. And then the thieves, you know, they're scheming on how they can get this pearl. And then Kino goes to sleep for a little while. A little while later, good old Juana, she does not want this pearl in there. So Kino, he like senses movement. He opens up his eyes in the dark, and you can see, like, through the glow of the fire that she's up and she's moving around, but he cannot hear her because Juana, you know, she's like sly as a fox. She's making no noise, but what he did hear was the softest little drop from the rock next to the fireplace. So Kino knows that Juana has the pearl now. And she disappeared into the night. Now Kino's up, he's on his feet, he knows exactly where she's going, he knows she wants to get rid of that pearl. He starts chasing her to the water, and right when she's getting ready to chuck that pearl into the ocean, he tackles her. He tackles her, he punches her in the face, he kicks her in the stomach, he basically tells you, you're a piece of crap, leave my stuff alone, and she's bleeding and hurt now. Kino's super pissed off, the rage has gotten inside of him, this anger, this, wealth, this like thirst for wealth, I think that's what it is, has gotten inside of him. So now, Juana's on the floor, Kino's pissed off, but he's got his pearl. He starts walking back to the house, remember it's dark now, and he gets attacked by two men in the dark. And so Juana sees it, but she's kind of half disoriented. She hears a cry on the trail, and she gets up, she had almost got to the water, so now her dress is all wet from being knocked down right by the water. So she, kind of shakes herself off, gets herself more oriented, and then walks up to Kino, and she's like, oh my God, now his head is split maybe. So his head is split. She's using her wet skirt to kind of, dampen the blood that's on his head. And he's like, my pearl, my pearl, my pearl. And Juana had seen the pearl like in all the scuffle of the guys tackling him and punching him and whatever they're doing to him. Kino's pearl had fallen out of his breast pocket or his pocket, whatever he had it. And Juana had seen it on the way over, and she picked it up. And she goes, here, Kino, here's your pearl. I'm sorry I took it, Thanks a lot for beating the crap out of me, but here's your pearl. So Kino's like, oh my God, my pearl, awesome, awesome. Okay, so now they come back to the house, and the house is on fire. I think they grabbed the baby, or the baby was out of there, something like that. They lit up their house on fire because now people are just super jealous, and they want this pearl, and they know it's still around, and all this jazz. I mean, it's just like the momentum is just building, right? It's building. So what does Kino do? He goes over to his brother's house, Juan Tomas. So he goes over to Juan Tomas's house. He tells Juan Tomas what's going on, and Juan Tomas is like, you got to go. You got to get out of here. You can't put me in danger. You can't put my family in danger. You got to go. And he's like, all right, how about this? Let me just stay for a day. Don't tell the neighbors where we are, obviously. Oh, good thinking, Kino. Now you think not to tell the neighbors. Okay. The next day, Kino and Juana and the baby all stay in Juan Tomas's little hut, that's just like Kino's. And he tells everybody's like, oh, and that's right, Kino's canoe was broken too. Somebody had smashed a big hole into it. That was the night before. Juan Tomas is like, yeah, he must have taken off to the sea, or he must have taken off here, or he must have taken off there. And he told his wife, Juan Tomas told his wife, he's like, don't say anything. She has a really weird name. It's like Antolita. It's something cool and strange. So he tells her, don't tell anybody that they're here. So she doesn't. Kino and Juan and the baby lay low, and everybody who comes by, Juan Tomas tells them a different story. Now, at the same point in time, Juan Tomas is gathering supplies for Kino and Juana. So from every single neighbor, every single friend, I guess, in the village, he asked to borrow something. So from one neighbor, he asked for a bucket of corn. And then the next neighbor, he asked for a bucket of beans. And then the next neighbor, he asked for this and that and the other. And then finally, he gets this really long knife. And so he comes back with all the things, slowly but surely, that he gotten for Kino and Juana for this trek through the mountains. It's like 1,000-mile or 1,000-kilometer trek through the mountains that Kino and Juana are gonna need. They're gonna need these supplies. So Kino looks at the knife. He's all excited to have some protection for his family, for his pearl. And then that night, they take off. They take off during the middle of the night. And it talks about Juana and the baby, and Juana just seems like she's so good at keeping the baby quiet. She's got him on her back. He makes a little gurgling cries sometimes, and she just kind of is like, my son, be quiet. And then the baby's quiet, right? So that was kind of cool just to see that. I wonder if that happens in real life, or is it just in book life? Maybe it depends on the baby. So Kino and Juana, they take off. Juan Tomas and Kino, they don't know if they're going to see each other again, but like, who knows, you know? Kino's determined to get the best price for his pearl. He's scared. He's never been out of his fishing village before, so he's also a little intimidated at this trek that he doesn't know the way, but he's going to do it anyways, you know? Sound familiar, Bro Cottrell? So they take off. They don't stop, like the whole night. They're walking, they're keeping a pace, they're staying off the road, they're staying away from the light. Oh, and then he also says they started off on, you know, the beach or like a sandy path, and it was windy out. So the brother, right before he leaves, he says, "Good luck to you, my brother. You won't need to worry about covering your tracks right now because the wind will move the sand and it will cover your tracks." So I thought that was kind of cool. All right, so they move on. In the middle of the night sometime, the wind stops, and then now he's kind of worried about the tracks. And so he says that him and Juana start to walk in the tracks that this wagon left in the sand. He's like, maybe another wagon will come by and move the tracks, which I wasn't really sure why they kept talking about these tracks until, and this is until, we get to the road. Now he's at the road. They've been traveling all night. They're exhausted. And Kino's like, okay, we can't go anymore. We gotta rest. We gotta have some of those corn cakes that Juan Tomas gave us. So they're on the side of the road, and Kino brushes off the tracks that kind of lead into this little place for them to lay down. And so him and Juana are in this place almost like there had been deer or like something that had laid down there before them. And so they're laying down in this little piece, you know, of land. Kino and Juana, it seems like they kind of switched off. Like one of them got some sleep and then the other one didn't. And then the other one got some sleep and then the other one didn't. And Kino's like, he knows something's going on. And so then you know something's going on. But what is it? What's going on? So he looks out and Juana says, what is it? What is it? He says, the trackers, they're here. And you're like, what? The trackers are here? What do you mean trackers? And then he talks about how now that the pearl buyers know that he has the pearl and that he's on his way to the mountains, they're gonna sick the freaking trackers on him. And these trackers apparently are like bloodhounds. He says the trackers are basically so good that they could follow bighorn sheep that leave no tracks up in the Rocky Mountains where there's basically no tracks to be laid. I'm like, oh my God, you're dead, Kino. That's what I'm thinking. You're freaking dead. And Juana's like, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And Kino says, all right, well, I brushed away our tracks from the road. So like, let's just hope that they go by. You know, let's just hope that it's good enough right now and that they go by. So you're just waiting for these trackers to come. It says Kino was not even breathing when they showed up, but his back was arched and he was like ready to pounce. He had his knife with him, right? He had his long knife. So there's two trackers. They're like the bloodhounds. And then there's a guy on a horse who apparently, you know, finishes you off. He had a rifle or something. And so he's kind of the kill guy, I would say. So the trackers hunt and then the horseman kills. And so they see the place where Kino has, you know, brushed away his tracks into the laydown patch. And they look to the horse. And the horse kind of rears up and he does something with his ears. Like it seems like the horse is like sensing something also, which I thought was kind of cool and scary. And then something happens and then they're like, all right, let's move on. Like they weren't convinced that what they thought it was what it was. And so they kept going. And then you're like, all right, cool. And then Kino says, no, they will be back. They will realize that they lost the trail. They'll turn around and then they'll find us. So you're just kind of on the run now with Kino and Juana, Coyotito and the Pearl. And I kind of forgot throughout this whole thing that they were both kind of wounded. So they're wounded already going into this 1,000-mile trek. They got the Pearl. They're determined. And then, by the way, you're getting towards the end of the book. So you're like, how much more can happen with like a chapter left? You know, where are you going to take me, Steinbeck? Like, there's not a lot of room here. So off to the mountains they go. I don't know how far away from the mountains they were, but it did say that they were kind of inland, like from the bay when the trackers found them. They were talking about there being cactus there and the air being more dry and it was hotter, kind of muggier. And so they take off in whatever direction for the mountains. And they know that the trackers are going to be back. So what Kino's doing all the way up through the mountains is he's kind of circling back. He's doing like this zigzag thing because he knows that the trackers are going to be on his tail. And the more that he can fool them, the more time he's going to have with Juana, right? So they do this all day. He's like backtracking. Juana's trying not to do anything, you know, to like make any extra sign for the trackers. And they're getting up into the mountains. It's probably like the morning now or something. I don't know. Time passes and they're probably disoriented also. So who knows what the heck time it was. But I remember it was kind of during the daytime because he sees this, but they'd been going like all day. So maybe they'd spent the night on the road or something. So now he's up in the mountains and he sees like these two caves that are like high up in the rocks. And I kind of thinking to myself, why are you going to go in the cave? If you can see him, the trackers can see him. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But anyways, he says, Juana, let's go up in the cave. He already checked it out. It's cool. We're going to stay there. And we're going to wait for the trackers. And we're going to see what they do. Because we cannot outrun them. Like, trying to outrun them is pointless because we're just going to be running forever. So he says, I have to do something about it. He says, why don't you stay here with the baby and I'll take off by myself. And this whole thing will be a lot easier. I'll be able to travel faster without you. And Juana's like, no. He says, no, I can travel faster without you. You'll be safer. No. She did that like 3 or 4 times. Okay. Kino's like, she's not going anywhere. We're in this together. Okay. So Kino and Juana and the baby are all in the cave. And he looks down the mountain and he sees these little teeny ants, which are the trackers, and then a bigger ant, which is the guy on the horse, right? So he's determined to wait for them now. He waits for them, like all day. They took like a really long time, I guess. They finally show up to where Kino and Juana were before. Now, Kino has made all these like really obvious signs of, you know, going up this other direction of the hill to throw them off of the trail of going to the cave. So he's like, oh, this will get him off of our trail, you know. He went up like 100 feet or something and made all this obvious trail. And then he, you know, doubled back and went up into the cave with Juana. So he sees the men now. They're finally here. It's like dusk. The trackers are finally there. My heart's racing. Kino's heart's racing. I'm sure Juana's heart's racing. Is your heart racing? I'm not sure. But, you know, he's like building the suspense, and he's got the knife. And then the trackers, no, you know what he said? He said, the trackers are going to go up the trail where I left my sign, and then we're going to go down the other side. That was his original plan. That's right. The best laid plans, right? The trackers do not go up that original hill. Instead, they stay down below. They light a fire, or I think they just maybe lit a cigarette. So he kind of saw them lighting a cigarette. He saw the silhouettes, and 2 of the trackers had laid down to, you know, get some rest. And the horseman, he is now without his horse because they're so high up in the mountains that the horse can't get there, right? So he had to leave the horse somewhere down below. So now he's on foot and he has his rifle. So he's the lookout guy. And he says, now's my chance. I gotta go down. And this is the order that I gotta do in it. I gotta go down so slowly. And I gotta do it before the moon comes up, because as soon as the moon rises, then they're gonna be able to see me coming down the mountain. So I just have to do it in the darkness. So Juana's even worried about his white, raggedy looking clothes. And even though they were all dirty from being on the run, he took them off. So he's taking off all his clothes. He's getting down into nothing. You know, he's got his brown Mexican skin that I guess will blend into the night. A whole, whoa. Okay. The guy's freaking naked. He's got a big gun. He's on a mission to kill. I'm like, oh my God, Kino, be careful. Be careful, Kino. Am I adding suspense? All right, so Kino goes down. The dude is up. The rifle dude is up. Kino's going so slowly down the mountain to not raise any suspicion. And he's like barely breathing, and then I'm barely breathing, and then he gets to the place where there's the man with the rifle, and the moon starts rising. And you're like, what? The moon's starting to rise? You're like, Kino, hurry up. And now his heart is racing in his chest. It's thumping out of his chest. Mine's thumping out of my chest too. I can't wait to see what's going on. And now there's a little hill behind him and the dudes. So he can't see if the two trackers are still asleep now or not. And then the worst thing happens. They hear a little cry. And it sounds like, ah, or whatever it was. And the trackers pay attention. And they start talking about it. What was that? Well, it comes from the direction of where Juana and Coyotito are. And you're like, oh my God, Juana, of all the times to let the baby give out a cry, this is not it. One of them says, oh, I've heard coyotes before out there in the wild. That doesn't necessarily mean it's human, da-da-da. And the rifleman says, I'll tell you how I can shut up that sound. And he stands up, and as he's taking off a shot in the direction of the cave, Kino rushes him. His knife drives home. It goes through his freaking throat, and then he grabs the rifle. The other guys are scrambling to get on top of him. There's a well there, by the way. There's like a well of water, like just a little drinking well. So Kino, kicks the one guy in the well, knocks him on the head with the shotgun or the rifle, and then shoots him once. The guy falls into the well. He turns around and he shoots him right in between the eyes, and then he shoots the other one. Okay, so they're dead now. We're thinking, thank God, because Juana and Kino had already talked about how they were not going to take Kino and Juana back to the village. Like, they're just going to say they found him dead and they take the pearl. They both talked about it. They're like, there's no way that we're going to go back with that pearl. Like, they'll steal it from us and then they'll lie. They'll come up with some stupid story about how we were dead. So that's how Kino knew, like, he had to kill him, right? So then he hears another cry, like the cry of death, he said. And you're thinking, oh God, what's happened? Well, the rifleman, he was able to get off a shot, right? And you're like, is it the baby? Is it Juana? Is it the both of them? We don't know. And now we're on to the last chapter. And you're like, come on, man. What's up, Steinbeck? What the hell happened? So you're on to the next chapter, and it says, a while later. A while later, however long a while is, the town is talking. The town knows that Kino and Juana are coming back. We don't really know exactly what happened yet. Just a second. I gotta pass through here. They say that Kino and Juana, Kino used to always walk ahead and Juana used to always walk a little bit behind. But now Juana was walking side by side with her husband. Kino's a mess. Juana's a mess. As they walk back into the town, you just don't hear anything about the baby. And then the neighbors see the bloody sack that Juana's carrying on her shoulder. And you're like, oh my God, freaking Coyotito died because he's not moving. The little bloody sack on her shoulder is not moving. So here's two grieving parents. The villagers said that they walked into the village like zombies. They weren't looking up, they weren't looking down, they weren't looking around. They walked back into town. Nobody's kind of saying anything to them because they know that they're not really there. They're walking into town and it's like they're staring off into space. They're just both so not where they are, right? They're not where they are. Everybody can tell. They're just in some kind of other entranced world. And then they don't know where they're walking, but they walk back into the village. Everybody's looking at them, wondering what the heck happened. They walk past their burned shack. They keep going. They get to the water's edge, and Kino says to Juana, do you want to do it? And she says, no, you do it. And so he takes the pearl. I'm getting goosebumps again. He takes the pearl out of his top vest pocket and freaking chucks it back into the water. And you're like, no, what are you doing? What are you doing? That's the pearl of the world. And then it says that the pearl sunk down the green, clear water and landed on the silky, sandy, green algae floor. And just then, a crab scurried over the pearl and caused a tuft of silt, and when it settled, the pearl was never seen again. And you're like, dude, Steinbeck, what the hell, man? What the hell? Every story should be happily ever after, like all the American movies, right? And that was it. That was the end of it. So let me know what you guys think about that. Have you read the book before? Have you not read it before? I personally have read it at least once, maybe even a couple times, but I forgot how it ended. I remember I was not thrilled about the ending, but I didn't remember exactly what that looked like until I read it again. I'm like, oh my God, seriously? So you're just to assume, you're just to assume that Kino and Juana, they just went back to the life as it were, but without Coyotito. So let me know what you guys think about that. It was a beautiful day on the river. I enjoyed telling you about it. I enjoyed having you on this beautiful ride with me. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. It's so gorgeous out here. And if you guys like this one, maybe there'll be another one. And so if you like it, make sure to give me a little like and a little comment. This is what I thought was cool. Or if you didn't like it, tell me what you didn't like about it. Maybe it was too long or not interesting. I might like to do some more of these because I like to read and I like to tell people about what I'm reading. It kind of makes you remember it a little bit more again. And then I'll remember it forever now. All right, thanks a lot for being here, guys, and I'll see you next time. I'm gonna be uploading a lot of crab stuff, a lot of crab fishing stuff. I'm probably gonna be experimenting with some cooking seafood channels as well. And if there's something in particular that you guys really like to see or wanna hear more of, let me know, because I always wanna show you guys more of what you wanna see. Bye!